And now, Lifestyles Unlimited presents the Real Estate Investor Radio Show. Over the next hour, we unfold your map to financial freedom. You'll learn how to retire through investing in single family and multifamily real estate. You'll learn how to create cash flow and build wealth so you can have the time and money to live the lifestyle you want.
Welcome to the show. This is Andy Webb with Lifestyles Unlimited. And as always, we're working on your financial freedom. And hey, I'm filling in again today for Al Gordon. He's still out enjoying the lifestyle, so I'll be taking his place today on Tell Al Tuesday. And I'm honored to be here. I'm honored as I get to interview somebody that, I've heard them talk before. He's been a guest with Al, and he's been a guest on the show with Del several times. And for me, it's my first time to talk with him, and I'm excited because as an investor, longtime single-family guy, I'm just starting down my path as an apartment investor, just a couple years in. Yeah, I have a few multi-family investments in my portfolio, but this guy, man, he's done 10 times, 10 times the number of apartment investments that I have. So are you ready to learn? Get ready. I know I am. So without further ado, Bill, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be on with you, Andy.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Now, I've read a little bit of your bio. I know where you are. I know a little bit of your background. If you don't mind, share with the audience, kind of set the stage for us so we know where you are, what you were doing prior to investing, a little bit of that story, if you don't mind.
Sure. I am an orthodontist by trade. Believe it or not, still practicing. I just work a day and a half a week and love that. But I had a private practice in Orlando, Florida since 1987. I had looked into real estate, but really done nothing. I was a traditional kind of guy who had a 401k in the office and had all the staff investing in that, and also gave the staff money to be in it, and had that for years. But at a certain point in my career, even though living a good life, I just knew that, well, what happens when I get to the end of the rain? What happens? I've got this pile of money like everybody tells you to do. What do you do with it? And is it enough? Do you ever know if it's enough or not? And so after I turned 65, I decided, you know what, it's time to retire. But I was still looking for something else. So I'm a lifelong learner and always looking for different things, invested in many different things, but never really found a niche that I liked. And then one day I was listening to a radio show at lunch. I normally listen to this. It wasn't really a real estate radio show, but it had to do with different type of investments. And this one particular day, it was over. And they said, now we have Del Walmsley from Lifestyles on. So I started listening to that. And this really started hitting home because at the time, I already had some single-family homes. I was lucky enough to be able to invest in some single-family homes during the downturn after 2008. And I bought between 2010 and 12, I bought 9 single-family homes. I had a broker that was pretty much doing everything for me. He'd locate them, I'd look at them and buy them, and then they would manage them. They didn't go by the new best product, best price. They just felt like, well, let's just get it habitable and get somebody in there. So that worked for me. But anyway, I started listening to Del on the radio and was really intrigued. After a few months, went ahead and took the 2-day, and I was probably one of the early ones that could take it online because being in Orlando, easy for me to get over to do a live one. And took the 2-day, was very impressed, and went ahead and joined as a PIG member, still never being there to Texas. So I took the big leap and went ahead and invested in my first multifamily apartment back in, I think it was around, was in 2015, I think in the fall of 2015. And the rest is pretty much history.
Wow. So let me unpack a couple of things there. So you're in Orlando. I mean, that's that's just pure luck, happenstance that your old program gets canceled or goes off the air, and hey, here's Del. So, a fortunate thing,
Absolutely.
I would say. And you mentioned you were one of the first to be able to attend the 2-day. That, just for the listeners' sake, the 2-day, we call that our financial freedom seminar. And when you become just a base member, you have access to that, and you can go to that as many times as you can. And Bill, when I joined back in 2012. It was just here in person. I had to go down to the offices here in the Dallas area. Del came up from Houston, where he's based, and he taught the 2-day. Well, nowadays it doesn't matter where you are, you can do that virtually, and it's become very, very easy. You can do it over Saturday and Sunday 2 days, or do it over 4 evenings. Spread it out a little bit more. I've done that a few times just as a refresher. So you listened, you tuned in, you heard the message. Was there something in Del's message that just really resonated with you in particular?
Well, to be honest, I never in my life thought I could be a participant in a multifamily apartment complex. So as soon as he started talking about that, these syndications, I went, wow, this is something I want to look into. Because single families are single families, but you can't really, I guess you could buy hundreds of those, but I didn't really want to do that. So just being able to participate as a passive investor in a multifamily apartment just really rang a bell for me.
We heard a little bit of your story already. We heard that you got into 9 single-family investments, did those first before understanding that, you and we can all actually invest in apartments. Good deal.
The way this started was I had a friend of mine was a real estate broker, and since the 2008 downturn, the guy didn't have any money to invest. So he talked to me and he said, you know what, there's some great deals out there in single family homes. And if you're interested, I'll see if I can find some for you. So sure enough, that first home, boy, I had to go in and out of that and check it twice. And it was tough. But after that, by the time I got to 3 or 4, I wouldn't even see, I wouldn't even go look at them. I just look at them on the internet and make that decision. So it did make it much easier when I went ahead and went into multifamily. With me being in Orlando and not being able to see these apartment complexes, I was kind of used to that.
Okay, so it helped you with your mindset shift when you did that very first multifamily investment in late 2015. Did you fly out to check it out wherever it was, or how did you handle that? Were you nervous at all?
I was a little nervous. However, I'd been doing some research on different leads, and I wanted to pick someone that was seasoned. So the jockey, I wanted to be very seasoned, already have a lot of multifamily behind his belt. I talked to a few other passive investors about him and decided this is the guy I want to go ahead and invest with. So that's how the first one was. But no, I did not go to Houston and look at it.
Yeah, no need to, is there? And that's great. So for the listener, I think the takeaway I want them to get out of this is single family can help you on the way. Is it a prerequisite to being a passive multifamily investor? No, not at all. It is not. I happen to have done it. Bill, you happen to have done it. It helps you with some mindset, perhaps. Can help you with capital. If you don't have the capital to get into that apartment investment, well, start with single family. Certainly, we've heard that helped as well, of course, but not a prerequisite. Now, I am curious. You heard the message from Del. You learned, I can invest in apartments. What was it about apartments as compared to single family that pulled you in that direction?
Well, it was the possibility of getting into so many different units, and with multifamily, of course, you have many units under one roof if that's what you choose. Although you can go down to lower numbers of units, but it was just the whole idea of making this completely passive and just looking for what we call mailbox money every quarter when the mailbox money comes in.
Yeah, it's passive. The single family, you even if you have a property manager, you may be connecting there a little bit. You're managing the manager, and then economies of scale. I think that's the huge message. And I know when I went to the 2-day, that was very eye-opening when Del presented that. I'm sure for you as well then. So we heard about scale, and you've scaled considerably. Can you tell us about your apartment portfolio, whatever you want to share that you've built, over the last, how long has it been? First one in 2015, so about 8 years now.
Yep. It has been. It has been. At this point, I have 70 active multifamily deals right now, and I've had up to as many as 90, but last year was a big banner year for sales. So quite a few sold last year. So, yeah, we've sold about 20, not last year, but over time.
Okay. We talk on the show about tax advantages. That can be a pretty big capital gain if you have 20 sell in 1 year. But hey, you turn around, you reinvest, you get that depreciation, and I think you're perfectly okay. How have the tax advantages helped you over the years?
It's just amazing. It's amazing how this magic word depreciation works. I have to say. Plus, I will say, last year for the first time, 3 of the deals that did turn, I was able to go forward with them in a 1031 exchange, which I hadn't done before. So that's even a better way to use it.
Absolutely. And we won't go into the 1031 here. It's just a way to roll your capital forward without having to pay taxes at that time. We defer those. There are lots of shows, by the way, to the listener. Go to lifestylesunlimited.com. There's a search bar at the bottom. Type in 1031 exchange to catch some of those programs. That's just another one of the great tax advantages. I know, Bill, people do it on single family all the time. I picture it being pretty complicated when you're in a passive investment, but we have great syndicators that get it done.
That was one thing I didn't even know that was possible to do because I'd heard other people talking about, you can't do a 1031 with a multifamily apartment, but it's possible.
Of course you can.
It's been proven. It's now been proven.
Well, and I think, you said you were focused on that very first lead, and I know Dell asked the question as, are you focused on the jockey or the horse? The jockey being the syndicator, or what we call them at Lifestyles Unlimited, we call them lead investors because they're leading that project, that deal. Are you focused on the jockey or the horse being that apartment investment, that community that's being turned around? Are you always just focused on the jockey, or are there times where you say, hey, I want a particular looking deal or investment?
Right. As I mentioned in the beginning, I was really zeroed in on the jockey, the lead investor that had a lot of experience since I wasn't there. But as I got into more and more of these deals, I've actually gone into some brand new lead investors, some of their deals. I'll typically look for a yield play, looking for more of the income to come in, but I do want to have everything along with that.
Okay.
So yield plus I'm expecting to have a capital gain as well.
Sure, yield with a little bit of hybrid component. We've got about a minute and a half in this segment. Can you explain just briefly what a yield is on one end of the spectrum? You said that's the cash flow essentially versus value for the listener, which is on the other end of the spectrum.
Right. With yield, you probably won't get as much of a big capital gain in the end. So you're looking for perhaps a quarterly, we can call it a dividend or a distribution. That's something that I was looking for as looking towards retirement and replacing my income. And then also with a value, some of these deep value plays, you wouldn't get a dividend for a period of time while they're getting the apartment complex up to snuff. And then a lot of times they'll do a cash out refinance and pull quite a bit of money out.
Yeah, you get your cash in a lump sum essentially as a supplemental loan or a full cash out refinance, and then you hold the asset. All your cash is pulled out, and you're making infinite returns at that point. So, good strategy as well. So exactly. I'm with you. I've tended to focus on yield and hybrid as I want more cash flow coming in the door. But I know investors that are focused on that capital gain. They're young, they're working, they have that job income, don't need the cash flow. Let's get that big wealth building component in play and run with that. Hey, we're going to run. We'll be right back.
Got questions? Call Lifestyles Unlimited at 855-497-4335. The Real Estate Investor Radio Show continues next.
I created these case studies 30 years ago for this reason. You're the accountant. You're the CPA. You're the engineer, the IT guy. Do you follow what I'm saying? You're that little quiet cubicle guy. And you don't see yourself as a rich millionaire. So I have to bring the cubicle people up here. And you go, honey, look, He's got the same shoes I have on, right? And he speaks in the same language that I speak in. And you've got to be able to see somebody you can relate to or relate with for this to work. Part of the reason I want you to speak to other people is because half of your, I'd say, challenge is that you don't believe you can be rich, is that you don't believe you can retire within 5 years. Until you can reconcile that in your mind, you won't be willing to take the steps necessary to get there.
Join us today. Check for in-person and online dates at lukstudy.com.
Creating the lifestyle you've always wanted. You're hearing Lifestyles Unlimited's Real Estate Investor Radio Show.
Welcome back to the show. I'm your host today, Andy Webb, filling in for Al Gordon on Tell Al Tuesday. If you have any questions for me, send me an email to askandy@luinc.com. And I'm thrilled today to be on the air in place of Al because I'm joined by Bill, and I've heard his show multiple times. He's talked with Al, he's talked with Del, and he's got a tremendous portfolio. I mentioned in the first segment, Bill, easily 10 times what my wife and I have done on the passive side. Now, we're just getting started, but I love talking with folks like you that are way, way ahead of me because I can learn a ton, and we've already learned a lot from you. I am curious to hear, we heard that your portfolio, you got up to 90 passive investments. Some have sold. You're down to 70 now. First one was in Houston. I assume they're not all in Houston. Tell us a little bit about your geographical spread with those.
Yes, when I first started investing in lifestyles, most of the deals, most of the apartment complexes were in Texas. And as I continued investing, they started spreading out. So at this point, I'm actually in about 6 states: Texas, Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Oklahoma, and even in Kansas, believe it or not.
Yeah, well, we have a realty office in Kansas now that's servicing both the state of Kansas as well as Missouri there in Kansas City. So we're kind of following those markets as well. We're in Georgia. I heard you say Arizona, not in Oklahoma, but I know we've got investors. In fact, I just saw a syndication opportunity in Oklahoma recently. I missed that one, but is there an intentional drive towards these particular markets? Because I know I've seen investments in others like Indiana, Kentucky, Alabama, Mississippi. What's pushing you in this direction?
Well, for one reason, Florida, I wanted to be in that for a while, and I did get into one, but there hadn't been that many of lifestyle syndicators in Florida. Now, we just did have a new one recently come to Florida, and I did get in that deal just late last year. But Arizona is just such a hotbed in the Phoenix, Tucson area. I was anxious to get in there, and I have a couple, one in particular lead that I work with quite a bit that I'm happy to be with him. And then same thing in Georgia. I met, in fact, it was his first deal I got into in Georgia, and he ended up, I don't know how many he's done by now, probably about 6 or 7 different deals. And the one you mentioned in Oklahoma, I'm in his first deal in Oklahoma, and he just started that new one.
Yep.
So it's interesting. Yeah.
So it sounds like you're finding that lead investor, that jockey that you want to cruise with, and you're sticking with them as they roll into the next investment after that. Is that correct?
Exactly. I do like to do that. When I find somebody I like, I want to continue with them.
So you're following certain lead, and that's great. Yeah, that's great. We've done the same. We're actually in our 3rd investment, even in just 2 years, with very quick turns, small. Now we're talking, Bill, smaller, very small apartment communities that we've gotten into so far. But I love it. Is there anything in particular that you are vetting when it comes to, because you are in Florida? We heard that investing from afar. Is there anything you're doing to vet a particular city, market? How are you learning about where you're placing your money, again, from a geographical sense?
I'm looking for a state that has good tenant laws, number one, and I'm also looking for a state with a lot of growth, a lot of job growth, a lot of people growth, and those happen to, a lot of those are Texas, Arizona, Florida, and even Georgia.
Okay. Yep. And again, to the listener, those are not just the markets where we've seen the investment. In fact, you mentioned when you started out, it was squarely in Texas. And in large part, that's because Lifestyles Unlimited grew up in Texas, founded in Houston over 30 years ago, grew into the central Texas area, San Antonio, Austin, now Dallas as well, Dallas for a long time now. So naturally, that's where we've seen a lot of the syndications. In fact, one of our 2-day presenters, Greg Scott, he's going to be presenting at the coming Wealth and Passive Income Expo. He and his wife, they were the first ones to do a syndication outside of Texas, and that was up in Michigan, actually, of all places. They're now active in other states as well. But yeah, so we've seen this growth, and it's great that you were able to get onto that train as it started to speed out of the station and hit all of these progressive markets. It's very fascinating to me to watch how again, I've been a member since 2012, to watch how the organization has grown. Now, I want to ask you, you've done this for a while. You've gotten into a lot of investments. Thinking about the listener out there that is looking to get into that first passive investment, teach us a little bit here, Bill. What recommendations or advice would you have for that person that's thinking about this thing?
Well, I would suggest they get to know the lead as much as possible that they're looking at, and as far as what they're actually looking for, as far as a value play or a yield play, depending on where they are in life, look into that. But definitely do that 2-day and get in there and become a preferred member. That's the way to go.
Surely. So investing criteria, I probably beat a dead horse, speaking of jockey and horse, Bill, all the time on the show. But I think it's important really to know what you're looking for so that you're not just jumping at every opportunity, because that may not really meet your life needs at this point in time. So absolutely great. And then getting to know the lead. Now, you're in Orlando, right? We've heard there are leads in Georgia. Maybe that's a quick drive from Orlando, but Arizona. How do you get to know those leads from afar?
Through going to the expo. I'd say that's probably, for me, number one, because of the distance. I'm not able to go to the monthly meetings and things like that. So it's just an exciting day when you get out there and you get to see multiple apartment complexes with the lead investor who actually is in charge of that apartment complex.
Yeah, the bus tours are amazing. Now, I have the opportunity locally here in Dallas, if you're listening in one of our prime markets where we have an office, we do these monthly multifamily road trip, not on a bus, not to 4, 5, 6 apartment communities, but we'll go to one and It is a good educational process for me, Bill, and for everybody out there, because you get to see the business plan, the before, the after, how they converted it, and what the impact on that cash flow is, and what the impact on that value is, which is my wealth at the end of the day, when that sells. So it really helps you if you're one of those folks out there like Bill, like I, that didn't know you could invest in apartments. This lets you see how the magic happens in essence. Now, Bill, the news for the listener is that I know the bus tours are sold out. Those passes are gone. Online pass sales for the expo have ended. However, we do have passes available at the event, at the Wealth and Passive Income Expo. For the listener, that's going to be here in Irving. I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. That's going to be right in Irving. The prime dates for the listener now are going to be Friday and Saturday, because those days are filled with networking, a lot of education and breakout sessions. So come with your learning hat on. I want to shift gears again, and I noticed in your bio, I was just reading through, you've got a handful of kids, don't you?
I do, 4, and now I have 2 grandchildren and 1 on the way. So the family's building.
Yeah, and I saw in here somewhere it said something about building the family office. I like that notion of family office. Can you explain what that means and how you're putting that into play?
Yeah, I mean, my way I would look at the family office is what my portfolio of multifamily homes that I'm building now is I'd like to have that as a legacy and have it continue putting out money after I've deceased. And so I'd like the family to be involved in this. And as some of them have interest, but they're young still, and they're doing their own thing, but they will listen to me, it seems like. But yes, what I'd like to do is plan on this so this can be a legacy over time, because this is something that does last long term.
Absolutely. You get them educated. I've met a number of investors that mom or dad, they've been doing it now, their children involved, and sometimes even their children's children. I have not looked at the coming schedule for the expo to see if Curtis Haynes is doing his session, but usually he talks about family office there. So it's a great way. Again, I just have one child. He's 6, he's got his future ahead of him, but since he's come along, Bill, this has changed my perspective as well on how we are focused on building our portfolio with that notion of legacy, in mind as well. So,
right.
Well
yeah,
put.
Curtis Haynes is where I got this idea from, because he's been on Teldell a few times, and he has also talked about the family office. And I thought that was a great concept.
Absolutely. Thinking forward, I've heard another question I get from new investors, soon to be passive investors. The whole gamut is, what about the market? I don't know if your crystal ball is working today, Bill, or not, but what do you think? What's going on? Are you continuing to invest here in 2023?
Oh, I am, and I think there are still great deals out there. You do have to be a little more scrupulous. You have to really look at this sort of a thing and make sure that it's for you, because there's still plenty out there. And I do believe over the next year or so, there'll be some really good deals out there.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. My crystal ball's not real. It's a bit fuzzy and dusty, but yeah, I think so. And to the listener, if this is something you want to get involved with, don't wait a year or a year and a half out to do that. You need to get prepared now. You need to get the passive investor education behind you so that you're able to make critical decisions, read the memoranda and everything that goes with that investment. What about goals? What's on the horizon? What are you planning next?
Well, as I mentioned, I'm still working a day and a half a week, and I really enjoy that. I like the structure. I love to make a beautiful smile still, but I do like my real estate. Luckily, as being a passive investor, you have plenty of time to still do whatever you want. So we're traveling, seeing our grandchildren, and living the life.
Very good. Continuing to invest. I did see, I think I saw in your notes that you've done the lead investor certification. Any intentions to be a lead? We need more in Florida, don't we?
We do need more in Florida, don't we? Yes, I did pursue that, and I'm continuing to keep that. But I love being a passive investor. So I don't think I'm going to meet that horizon of being a lead investor. I had thought about it, though, for a period of time. Yeah,
very, very interesting. And I'm curious, though, for you as a passive, we've got actually several tracks of education for the apartment investor. There's what I mentioned already, the passive investor certification. We've done those. There's the multifamily core. I did that as well. It's a base level of understanding what's happening in a transaction. What takeaways did you get from doing the lead certification that maybe help you better understand what your lead investors are doing?
Well, it allows you to put yourself in the lead position. So because of that, it gives you a lot of insight in these deals and what the lead's thinking of. And when certain things come up that they have to deal with, it was so educational that, it's helped me out as a passive. There's just no question about it. So I'd recommend it to anybody, even if they don't want to be a lead investor, because it's very, very helpful.
Yeah, like you said very early on in the show, you're a lifelong learner, and I think that just plays into that comment. Well, Bill, hey, Expo starting tomorrow, Wednesday, February 15th in Irving, Texas. That's going to be with the bus tour. Thursday, we've got another round of bus tours, actually, and the doors will open, I believe, 2 p.m. or so. You can go to our website, lifestylesunlimited.com, and click on the Expo and Tour button there to learn more. But tickets online, those have stopped, but you can get passes at the event. So if you're listening to me now in Texas, come on up, make the drive. If you're in San Antonio where Al Gordon normally broadcasts, come on up. Al's going to be there. He'll be back from his wanderings or ramblings or whatever he's doing. Speaking of rambling, that's what I'm doing, I suppose. But he'll be there. Come say hi. Come learn what Bill's doing. He'll be there as well. We've heard multiple times, Bill, that a great place to learn, meet those lead investors, and get that education. So, Bill, thank you so much for coming on today. I do appreciate you sharing your knowledge, giving us some good tips, whether it's for the single family or for that multifamily passive investor. And enjoy the expo. Stop by the radio booth. Say hi.
I absolutely will. Thank you so much for having me today, Andy. I enjoyed it.
And thank you for tuning in today. I do appreciate you listening. You've been listening to Lifestyles Unlimited's Real Estate Investor Radio Show. I hope to see you at the expo. And remember, it's not the money, it's the lifestyle. You have a good day.
The information and opinions you hear on the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show are those of the hosts, guests, and callers. The Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show is for entertainment purposes only. Please consult a professional regarding your personal investment needs. Nothing presented constitutes an endorsement, recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or security.